You're listening to the Never Heard of It podcast,
a Night Shift Radio original. Every week we bring you the good,
the bad,
the weird,
and lesser known streaming movies.
Hit subscribe for new episodes every Thursday and Sunday. So there was two movies that have come out recently, one of which did a dual release. It went to theaters and it also was on HBO Max. That, of course, is the movie The Menu, which stars Ralph Fiennes, Anya Taylor-Joy.
You told me about this, and I have been hearing other people talking about it with no details, but definitely mixed reactions.
Yeah, I'm very surprised at the reactions to this movie because I watched this movie and I was like, yes, this is exactly how high-end chefs act. Like, this is what I see of that world, the restaurateur, like the high-end restaurateur world. I don't know, what is the term? Because foodie isn't the term. Like, foodie is like the pedestrian level. Like, what is the word?
Are you thinking of gastronomy?
That is exactly the word I'm thinking of.
I actually remember seeing the original trilogy for this and thinking that it was going to be absolutely bonkers. Nicholas Hoult is in it.
Nicholas Hoult, yep.
I love Nicholas Hoult.
He's man, he's a character in this movie.
John Leguizamo, who the last time I saw John Leguizamo, he was trying to murder Santa Claus.
And that wasn't even in a movie. It was just what he was doing. He was just at a mall in San Jose.
There's going to come a time when John Leguizamo he's going to snap and he's just going to try to murder Santa Claus. And you know what? I'm not speaking ill of John Leguizamo. Don't at me. I love John Leguizamo. I just know that someday it's going to happen. And we're all going to be
happen.
like, yeah, we saw that coming.
Yeah, we'd be like, oh yeah, right, John Leguizamo, yeah, totally killing Santa Claus. That's exactly.
But that's how we'll learn that Santa Claus was actually real all along, because he'll succeed, and it won't be like a mall Santa or just some random old Grandpa Joe that looks like Santa. No, it will be the actual Saint Nicholas from the North Pole. He'll come back holding his the bloody stump of his head and be like, yeah, Christmas is canceled, motherfuckers.
Just tosses the ground. Where's your Saint Nick now?
It's just a string of Rudolph or of reindeer antlers around his neck.
Now that's the movie where you have to get. That's like so for those of you guys who watch the Teen Titans Go series or have kids that do, Santa is the villain in Teen Titans Go. He's a bad guy, and they're constantly having to fight him because he comes with missiles and stuff like that.
That's like Futurama too.
Yeah, I
love the idea of evil Santa Claus.
Evil Santa Claus it's just a very funny, it's a really good idea. And, bringing it back to The Menu, I think Ralph Fiennes has to play evil Santa Claus.
I'd be into that. I would absolutely be into that.
Yeah.
I think the entire mythos of Santa really lends itself well to a villain arc. Maybe starts out trying to do good for the world, but just all of that work and the thankless effort just finally grinds him down. And we see I was obviously referencing Violent Night, and Violent Night is a story that starts with Santa being ready to just throw in the towel and be done forever. But take that one logical step forward, and instead of being ready to give up, he just fucking snaps.
It just goes on a killing spree. That is the more plausible Santa story in my mind, is that eventually he would just snap and be like, oh, I can visit every home over the course of 12 hours in the entire planet. Well, guess what?
It's going to finally be a silent night for old Saint Nick.
That's the tagline. But anyway, so The Menu is a wild film, but there is so many elements of the movie. Now, here's the thing that might be surprising to you. Maybe you've watched a trailer for it, and if you have, then this won't be surprising. But if you've only heard about the movie or seen images or whatever, The Menu is a horror film.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that I think a lot of people might find surprising if they didn't watch the trailer where they say straight up hey, you're gonna die in this restaurant. But The Menu is a horror film, and it was a really, really well done film because the tension was there for the entire movie. Now, I'm not going to spoil things. It ends really cool, and not in the way you think it would. So I'm not going to spoil any of that. Go watch it. It's on HBO Max. It's in theaters. It was in theaters. It may not be anymore for by the time you listen to this episode. But watch the movie. I actually really enjoyed myself. But again, I watched this movie, and even with all the batshit things that happen, and I'm like, this is exactly what the world of gastronomy is like. Like, this is how these people actually are. And like, it's crazy. Like, they're Looney Tunes.
It's magnificent. I mean, it's an absolutely bonkers world of like high-end food and like high-end chefs. It makes no sense whatsoever. There's also a part of me that loves every part of it, especially like the more I watch like cooking competitions and I watch these people like really try to like outdo each other with the weirdest shit, and I'm like, I would never put that anywhere near my mouth, but I love watching you make it.
Yeah, and the one thing I do really like about the menu is, if you go into to any high-end restaurant, like not even like the crazy, no prices on the menu type restaurants, but even some that are just pricey, that food comes in courses, right? It's a flight of a meal, and there's like different levels of it. What's cool about the menu is that each section of the movie is chapter marked with each course.
Nice.
And I thought that was really cool because when you look at it in the big picture, you're like, oh my God, yes, I see the theme you built with, like how you're supposed to see it in those sort of high-end restaurants.
One of my favorite restaurants in this area that I stumbled across when my old boss was in town and he was going to be paying. So he was a big foodie, and I'm like, well, I've got this place I've been wanting to check out. He's like, let's go. And we went, and it was amazing. And pre-COVID, they were very big on just like doing like family style ordering. Like you just pick whatever you wanted off the menu and they would just bring it to you, and like you just serve yourselves out of a plate in the center and just share. And you could just have this like communal social experience over this really, really high end, like kind of farm to table type food. Bougie, expensive, special occasion sort of restaurant, but like just some of the best quality food I've ever had. Post-COVID, they moved to more of like a prefix type where like you pay ahead of time for what they call like the farmer's feast or whatever. It's like $75 a head, and you let them know any dietary restrictions you have. But otherwise, you sit down and they just serve you whatever the chef feels like making that day. And so like you might be sitting, 10 feet away from another table, having essentially the same type of experience, but the food that's being presented to you might be just ever so slightly different, where one course or one person's like entree course might be like really meat heavy, and another course might be like all plant-based, or might be like, gluten-free or something like that. So it's like this very similar presentation style going on all around you, but the food is very different. And I love that experience. There is definitely a high level of pretense to it, though.
So once again, this goes to my recommendation. You absolutely need to watch the menu.
I will watch
because
it.
I think it is on a level that I think you will appreciate. Because of that sort of food experience that like, and especially when Ralph Fiennes like really starts getting it, because he's the head chef in the movie. When he really starts getting into it, you're going to be like, yes, exactly.
He is absolutely believable as a high-end chef too. Just knowing him as an actor, and like even just seeing the still images, like, yeah, he carries himself exactly like someone who would be running a restaurant like this. So very interested in watching it.
Yeah, totally. And then, so outside of that, another big movie that has come out, and this is probably the biggest movie that has come out in the past week, and that is our loving viral android girl, M3gan. So M3gan is a Blumhouse film. This is with all the other Blumhouse horror films that have come out over the past couple of years, like Annabelle and all those sort of things.
It's fucking lovable weirdos.
Yeah. And so M3gan is the story of a lifelike android doll that was designed for children. They don't install the Asimov's 3 laws. No. And of course, M3gan goes on a killing spree. The thing about M3gan is it's only rated PG-13. it really is not a violent movie.
Interesting.
Like,
okay.
There's only a couple of kills in the movie, and they're not gory by any means.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it really isn't. It's not a jump scare movie. It's not a very violent movie. Like I said, PG-13. What makes this movie so charming is its batshit story.
Okay.
It's just so like it's a predictable movie. Like, honestly, I went and saw the movie and I was like, okay, that's going to be important. That's a thing. Yep. We're going to talk about that again. Like, oh, you're about to do this. And it was fine. And I predicted every single thing that was going to happen in this movie, but I had a blast the entire time because it's absurdist. And I think that's where this type of movie really wins out, is because listen, Child's Play, Chucky, murderous doll kills a family except for the kid, and the kid's the only one that could save the day or whatever like that, which is not how this, M3gan ends necessarily. But, it's Warren territory, right? Yeah. Like, we know the story. Sure. This isn't a new story. We just upgraded it to modern technology.
Sure.
But the journey that you take to get there was probably one of like the best horror absurdist experiences I've had in a really long time. Even though I knew exactly where it was going, I was like, this is really fun. It was just a really, really fun movie.
Interesting. Yeah, I was curious about that when I first saw the trailer, because it does look interesting. But there's a part of me that's like, if this is just digital Chucky, I'm not interested. But like the way you're describing it sounds more in line with what my first impression was from watching the trailer, and I am more interested in watching it after hearing that.
Oh yeah, I highly recommend it. So the big news about this movie, I'm giving estimated numbers because at the time of recording this episode, the weekend wasn't over yet, so we don't fully know what M3gan made on its opening weekend. But the estimation is that M3gan made a little over $30 million on its opening weekend, which, regardless of whatever, is really impressive, considering that Avatar 2 is out right now, and that movie has made $1.7 billion, and it's only been out for 2 weeks. Like, it's up against one of the largest movies in 10 years.
That blows my fucking mind that honestly, that anyone was interested in watching an Avatar sequel, but particularly that enough people were for it to bring in that much money.
$1.7 billion in 2 weeks.
Is that even still enough to make back its budget? What was
yeah, so it has turned a profit now between budget and marketing. I think it was like 800 million or 900 million or something. Jesus. So like, yes, it's definitely made a profit, and number 3 and 4 are in the works right now.
Listen,
to be made.
I'm not trying to stifle art and creativity here. And if James Cameron wants to make 19 of his like dances with blue water wolf people, then fine, go ahead, I guess. But there's a lot better uses of $1 billion a pop.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like there's better movies. Like, if we're gonna do $1 billion, like there are other better movies, more original story, meaningful movies we could be blowing $1 billion on.
You think of like how many decent indie budget films could have been made with a $900 million like lump sum? You think of like, let's say $5 million is a good indie budget. Divide 900 million by 5 million, 900 by 5, and like think of how many like amazing like smaller creator studio films could have been released for that same budget that would have been significantly better than a sequel to Avatar. The
10
movie,
years later,
the movie that literally ruined 3D movies forever for me.
And the world, because after Avatar, there were no 3D movies stopped being a thing. They stopped really offering them in a lot of places. It was still available, but like people stopped making movies in 3D because they were like, no one's either one, you're never going to be at the level of Avatar, with a James Cameron budget, or 2, nobody went and saw any 3D movies except for Avatar.
It's just like I, for a while, was seeing any movie in 3D that I possibly could. Like I saw what was it, Monsters versus Aliens, that like animated film?
I saw that one.
I saw that in 3D. Like I literally, like, if 3D was an option for like a period of probably like 5 years, I did it. And like that was after being a holdout of Initiative, being like, I don't know, it's too expensive. I don't want to put on different glasses. I gotta fuck it. Like, it's gonna give me a headache. But like at a certain point, and I don't know, it might have been the just bizarro experience of going to see My Bloody Valentine 3D with my old boss from the collections agency. That might have kicked it off for me. I don't know. But there was a period of time where, like, if 3D was an option, I did it. And then Avatar was so bad and gave me such a brutal migraine that I never saw another 3D movie again.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good villain origin story for your crusade against 3D movies.
It's more a crusade against the Avatar franchise than against 3D movies. But like, if taking down 3D movies is what it takes to take down James Cameron, then collateral damage, man.
We're coming for you. That's all I have to say. I mean, for $1 billion, he could have made a remake or a sequel to Abyss, which was an amazingly underrated movie.
Yeah.
Like, we could have had a sequel to Abyss, but instead we got Avatar 2.
Or he maybe could have like invested in an original story and not done a sequel to a retelling of something that's already been done 100 times on film and throughout human history, like thousands of more times, the same white savior story.
Right. Shit. You pay Brie and I $500,000. We'll write you a great movie, original movie right now. We don't even need $1 billion
right now. And you know what? If you want to make a sequel to any of those, like the exact same like copy paste storyline, give me a Dances with Wolves 2. No, sorry, not Dances with Wolves, because that's the foundation for the. I mean, give me that. Give me like old Kevin Costner, but no, give me Last Samurai with an old and just like completely unhinged Tom Cruise.
Yeah,
give me new Tom Cruise in the Last Samurai.
In the Last Samurai, but as an older, but even though he looks exactly the same. Yeah. There you go.
Give me
that's the story.
That's the decade-long sequel I've been waiting for. But speaking of like big budget original storytelling, going back over to HBO Max for a moment, we just wrapped on season 3 of His Dark Materials last night, and
series finale, right?
Series finale, yeah. Which, although there was ever so slightly an implication that they might be willing to explore some of the other stories in this universe. So His Dark Materials was a trilogy of 3 books. The Golden Compass, or if in the UK it was called Northern Lights, The Subtle Knife, and The Amber Spyglass. Yes, that is His Dark Materials. Pullman did later write a series of 3 like shorter kind of novella type books that like fleshed out little stories in this universe. One about Lyra shortly after the events of His Dark Materials. One about like Lee Scoresby in the North, and one that, if I remember correctly, because it's been a little bit since I read it, was set kind of before the events of His Dark Materials. And he's written some other like kind of short stories in this world, really flesh it out. He has been since working on a second, well, I guess a third technically trilogy called The Book of Dust, which like the first one is set. He tells you the story of Lyra's birth and as a baby and like why she's so important. And then the second and eventually the third one it released, it will tell like the story of Lyra grown up in her 20s and having further adventures that carry on from the story of His Dark Materials. Really cool. There's an implication at the very end that maybe we'll see more of the story. I don't know, but I'm definitely open to that. No spoilers whatsoever. I will give no details because I know a lot of people are still watching it. I thought that the entirety of this 3-season series was just fantastically well done. Just beautiful, beautiful visuals. The writing was reasonably true to the original story. One of the truest adaptations I've seen of anything in a very long time. Casting was brilliant. Loved it. I had some really minor complaints with like the last like 2 or 3 episodes. There were some things that I think like it wasn't that they were done poorly as that I thought they could have been done better. There's like some things that were changed from the books, or some things that just like didn't translate terribly well from page to screen, but not enough to take away from the experience. Like this isn't a Foundation experience here where like the whole thing's just fucked from episode 1. This was a really like faithful, true, beautiful adaptation, and just left me sobbing at the end, just like the books do. So absolutely 100% recommend. I mean, if you have read the books, I think you'll really enjoy the adaptation. If you haven't read the books, the show stands on its own, and you will still get a really good experience out of it, in my opinion.
As somebody who has not read the books but has watched the first couple of episodes, I think it's a really interesting show. It's beautiful looking. Mm-hmm. I think it's a really interesting show. I think it's a really interesting concept. The idea of dust is basically leftover. Well, what I know so far of 3 episodes, dust is the leftover between dimensions of different parallel worlds or whatever. Don't know if that's what it actually is, but that's the implication I got from the first couple episodes, is that, I think that's a really interesting theory, where we see someone step into technically our world and then step out back into their fantasy world. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, cool. I like this.
The one thing I will say is that they give an explanation for dust, and it is a reasonably satisfying one. But this is one of the things where I feel like they could have gone into even more depth and like really given us the details, because Pullman like really fleshes out his whole philosophy across the original trilogy, like really gives it to us, like hammers hard on the religious elements, hammers hard on the human elements, and does a really, really great job with the storytelling. And in particular, there is one character's story that ends well and ends heroically in the end of the book, or in the end of the series, but is compared to his storyline in the books is just like, that could have been so much more powerful if you had given us more about him and about what exactly is happening in this moment. And the same goes with their explanations of dust. It is sufficient, but it is not as powerful as it could have been. And that's really where my critiques of the series lie, is not that they did a bad job, but there are things that they could have done better.
You wanted more of, the
depth and the power and the emotion that comes from the story that Pullman wrote. I think he's mostly translated really well onto the screen, but like there are times when it's lacking.
Well, so there's at least 2 things on HBO Max you guys could be watching right now. Yeah. Is The Menu and His Dark Materials. If you haven't, there's 3 seasons worth of material.
Yeah. What are you doing on YouTube? Just go to HBO right now.
Go to HBO Max right now, or go out and see M3gan, then go home and watch the other things when you get home. Speaking of which, hey, if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, comment down below. What did you think of M3gan? What did you think of His Dark Materials? What did you think of The Menu? Yeah. What else is happening that we should know about? Yeah, obviously, if you stumble across this video a year later, you're going to be like, you idiots, why aren't you talking about, I don't know, like Low-Key Season 2? You'd be like, well, because, we did eventually with the Super Pod Hero Cast guys.
It's true.
It's true. We did, or will have done. But yeah, let us know, comment down below. And if you're listening on your podcast player of choice, hey, hit that subscribe button again. We have brand new episodes every Thursday and Sunday. Sundays are movie review episodes of movies you've likely never heard of. This Sunday, we are doing The Blackout: Invasion Earth, another Russian alien film. That movie is available streaming on Tubi TV for free. No sign up required. You just type in Tubi TV, type in the name of the movie, and watch with ads. So if you're the type of person that watches movies before we review them, that is where to go. If you're going to wait and hear what we think of it before you do it, hey, we'll see you Sunday. Hit that subscribe button. You'll get notified when the episode drops.
Sure will.
It's just that simple.
That's how it works.
That's how it works. And, hey, leave a rating and review. It's how other people find us and help us grow. And, you know how podcasts work. We're not your only podcast. We know how this works. You know how they work. Leave a rating and review. It helps. And tell a friend to do the same. Because that's stuff.
Yeah. And we appreciate you.
We do.
And
we do. Thank you for listening.
If you have read or watched his ARC materials, you know the importance of telling them stories.
Yeah. One last thing before we leave you. We have 7 episodes left until our 5-year anniversary.
Hooray!
5 years we've been doing this. That is one movie review, a minimum of one movie review every week without fail for the past 5 years. That is over 300, well, it's 263 movies we have reviewed so far since we started. Movies you've likely never heard of.
Just absolutely wacky to me.
It is crazy that we're still doing this.
And then,
with no stop.
I didn't mention this in our upcoming review of the Blackout Invasion Earth, but there are plenty of times where our very first episode is still informing how I watch movies, to the point where in a climactic battle scene, all I could find myself thinking was, why don't they just throw the guns?
Just throw the gun. Go back and listen to episode 1. You'll get that joke. Yeah, so hey, there it is, everyone. Thanks a lot for listening to this bonus episode or watching this bonus episode if you're over on YouTube. We super appreciate it. Thanks a lot for joining, and we will see you on Sunday.